Hey everyone, Matt here with Dukes Models, and welcome to the third installment of the contributor-funded kit review series. This time out, we've got a pretty interesting one. We're going to be looking at Kitty Hawk's new Su-17 fitter. Now, to say that I've got a contentious history with Kitty Hawk would be probably a bit of an understatement. I used to do reviews of some of their kits back when they first started out, the F-94, the F-35, the Jaguar, and the MiG-25, that sort of several years ago range. And I remember being pretty impressed by them, by their leaps and bounds they would go with every kit. I mean, that first F-94 was a piece of shit. And the F-35B was also a piece of shit, but it was a much better piece of shit than the F-94. It wasn't grainy. It actually had detail in places, things like that. The Jaguar was a leaps and bounds improvement over that. The F-35A was much better than the B. They had a series of, steady improvements. They always had a couple things, though, that always just didn't come together. And one of them was this sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like Schrodinger's engineering. It's they have this duality of being overambitious, but at the same time sloppy. So, this panel's going to be open, but it's not going to fit right. Or, we're going to go crazy on this detail, but we're going to provide you with photo etch for the instrument panels in the cockpit, which look terrible when painted because photo etch is flat. So they had this weird duality where it was, detail improving on every kit, things getting better here, better here, better here, but at the same time they still had this engineering sloppiness dogging them along the way where, the Jaguar, that thing is pretty notorious for being, not the most entertaining kit to build. And it's just stuck with them. Hasn't really gone anywhere. I would say, I built their AH-1Z Viper, the current version of the Super Cobra, essentially, 4-blade rotor or whatnot. And I actually really enjoyed that kit. It was a testament to what they can do when they decide to actually make sure a kit fits, make sure it's engineered, halfway sanely. There are a few things in that are frustrating, but nothing too bad. And then they go and release something like the Kitty, the Kitty Hawk OS2U Kingfisher or the P39, where certain pieces are just engineered in a way where you're just like, what are you thinking? What the hell? Why can't you have a mounting hole and a mounting pin that are the same size? Why can't you have ejector pin marks that are not the size of small mountains? Why do you have to put 20 sprue gates around an ignition ring? There are things that happen with these kits where it's like, this should be better. And there are those out there who will say, oh, well, it's the only 1/32 Kingfisher, so just be happy it exists. It's like, how about we have that plus something that is also of a similar caliber to other contemporary kits on the market? I don't think that's asking for a whole lot. I'm not expecting a, Tamiya or Wingnut Wings quality Kingfisher out of them, but something that at least, runs with the Trumpeters and the Hasegawas of the world. Come on, guys. So anyway, I have kind of sworn off of Kitty Hawk kits until I see an improvement in that, in that sort of engineering approach they take, and in the sort of kit quality. And so far, I will be honest, I haven't seen it. The Super A10 Dard, when they came out with that, and Kinetic came out with one at the same time. The Kinetic had, a 2-piece fuselage, left and right half, put them together, boom, done. The Kitty Hawk had, a 6-8-piece, something like that fuselage. Why? I don't see the point of this. And so when they announced the Su-17, that's one of those aircraft I've been waiting for a while. I don't really have any particular love of it. I just think it's a goofy-looking Soviet-era aircraft, and I have a weak spot for goofy-looking Soviet-era aircraft. But, of course, it would be Kitty Hawk that would be making it, because they seem to be stalking my dreams of interesting kits and boxing them so nobody else does. But it's here now. it is what it is, and so we're going to break into it, and I am going to cross my fingers that, you know, my past experience with the Kitty Hawk maybe lead somewhere to a kit that's actually an enjoyable build, a kit that doesn't have these weird sort of overambitious yet sloppy engineering quirks that make the build a slog. So with that, let's look at what actually comes in this disgustingly thick box and see what Kitty Hawk has thrown down this time. So, good old top opening box. Inside we've got parts and an instruction manual. The instruction manual is the typical booklet approach, into which this is kind of frustrating and annoying. They have stuffed the painting guides right in the middle. Full color, which is appreciated, but you know, maybe this would have been nice as kind of its own thing, not, you know, right in the middle of building it. Oh, and look, there's another gatefold over here. Okay. So, I flipped through this a little bit earlier, right before I put the kids to bed, and noticed a couple of things. You know, they have the typical, I would say the trumpeter approach to instructions, where it's just like build the hell out of everything before you move on to the next subassembly. For example, as you can see here, you know, go ahead and install the canopy and the pivot tubes and all that good stuff before you touch the wings. So we'll see how this goes. So in the box, we've got a bunch of parts all wrapped in plastic. I'm going to take a quick interlude and debag these, and we'll be right back. All right, so let's see what the box gives us. So first up, we've got the clear sprue. This looks, you know, actually quite nice. The windscreen is very nicely clear and shiny, well-defined frames. The main canopy, a little bit wavier through the clear areas, which is a bit frustrating. If you can see how badly it breaks up my finger in here versus this one where it seems generally okay. I'm going to blame that probably on the curvature and that impacting the molding. Still, I have seen many, many worse canopies in my time. Moving on to, let's see what sprue this is. Sprue A. So sprue A is the forward part of the fuselage. No two-part fuselage for Kitty Hawk, no sir. So we've got the nose, the cockpit opening, obviously the leading edge of the wings. It looks like the wings have a nice sort of socket to slot into. I'm not sure what this is before diving into it. I guess it might be part of the dorsal spine, which is one of the things that was added to the Su-17 as they sort of upgraded the Su-7. And then what plainly look like cockpit sidewalls. Now, I go back to the days when Kitty Hawk was trying to sneak by using really shitty flat PE pieces to make up for sidewalls, so it's nice to see something different here. And it looks from these tabs like there's going to be a instrument console or a side console inset that goes on top there, which would also be nice and appreciated. So overall, not unpromising aside from the, you know, multi-part fuselage, which to me still strikes as just silliness. Moving on to sprue E. So here we've got some stores. I will confess my absolute ignorance to what kind of weapons this thing carries. So these could either be bombs or drop tanks for all I know. I'm going to guess they're drop tanks. This looks like some sort of belly pod of some kind. Again, not claiming to know what the hell I'm talking about with these. Oh wait, up here we've got this. So this could be some sort of giant cluster munitions thing for all I know. Over here we've got, the sidewall, the side console pieces, which actually look quite good. Having just come from Tamiya's F-14, these beat the ever-living shit out of that. So good job there. Good job there, Kitty Hawk. I will applaud you. The seat has some nice, it's hard to see in here. It's got some nice sort of fabric ripply texture. Looks like it's going to build around the framing, and I've already peeked a little bit ahead in the instructions, and the seat is like 10 pieces. So overall, that's looking promising as well. The instrument panel, yay again for not representing this with photo etch, guys. Congratulations there. Overall, this sprue is looking rather promising. So, guarded optimism. So now sprue C. Sprue C is where things go kind of crazy. I don't know why there are these gaping holes, but there are. Anyway, here we've got, this is obviously the thorax part of the fuselage. I'm not an insectologist either. That's probably not even the word for somebody who studies insects. Anyway, enough mumbling. So we've got the middle section of the fuselage here. We've got obviously the rear section here with the speed brakes and the holes for those. We've got a bunch of various wing fence looking deals. So here and various, other flight control surfaces. These look like the slats that go onto the wings. Speed brake housings. I have no idea what this is. It's like some sort of compressor or pump. We'll find out. Anyway, again, nothing super exciting or not exciting on this sprue. If you look at the detail on these engine pieces, it's pretty solid. These panel lines and rivets put pretty much any airfix kit I've ever seen to shame. I would put them probably on the level with, maybe where Academy's at these days. Not quite as fine as what Tamiya pulls off. But still, this is, workable for sure. So at this point, I'm still in it all comes down to how it builds. Sprue D. So sprue D is where we have the engine. Oh boy. All right. I'm sure this will probably end up being integral to the construction of the aircraft, and so therefore, even though you will never see it, it will have to be built and installed. I don't get what the hang up is with manufacturers to just having like a tube that goes in the aircraft, and then if you want to show off this, the glory of whatever jet engine you have, just provide it as a separate thing and give it a stand. Let us put it next to the model instead of having to shoehorn this into the kit, make it a tail sitter, deal with all the extra fit and whatnot, only to have it never be seen. Like, let us just build the engine on its own if we want. So that's that. Enough griping. This looks like flame holders and turbine fans and various things. This is the leading cone part of the shock cone. Lots of fun little pieces here. The tires look, I don't know, it almost to me looks like somebody was designing these in a CAD program and like accidentally sliced off the top layer, but I'm not super familiar with the Su-17 wheels, so maybe they do look like that. I'm gonna guess there's probably some more bolt work or something in there though, right? Here we've got, this looks like the nose strut. No, main struts. So, landing gear in here, and I've got to show these. Look at the inside of these gear bay covers. These things are pretty gorgeous. The outside is dry and boring, but the inside is nice. Oh, and there are some of our Mount Everest-sized ejector pins. Dear God. All right. Moving right along. Funniest thing about this kit, in all honesty, is the sheer stupid number of weapons that it comes with. Weapons everywhere. Again, I don't know my Russian and Soviet weapons except for rocket pods and goofy looking little bombs. So they've got those. They've got, you can see the detail on whatever the hell this thing is. It looks like a pine cone. That's pretty cool. The rocket pod head detail is nice. I'm going to guess that there's no way to use anywhere close to all of these on this build, so if you happen to like building Russian things that carry Russian munitions and ordnance, here you go. But wait. There is a another sprue of them. So, yeah, you get a whole bunch of weapons. We're not even done with that yet. Next up, we come to, here's sprue B at last, stuck way deep in the box. This is the tail and the wings and the various flying surfaces. So the wings, you can see the sort of main inner wing here. It's got some pretty solid detail. Maybe a little bit soft in places, a little bit heavy and soft, but you know, definitely well within, I would say, current standards. The tail looks vaguely kinetic-esque to me. Still, though, totally within current standards. Plastic is nice and smooth, no roughness that I can detect. Now, the interesting thing to me isn't any of that. It's these. So these are the outer wings. These are the sweeping portions of the Su-17's wings. As you can see, they've got a little pin here, so don't even think about putting it in after the fact, unless you want to. I guess you could cut right here. I don't know how stable that would be, though. But they are one piece on either side. So that's interesting, that's promising. I would also say, holy cow, those things look deep and massive. You know, you look at the detail on the inner wings, and it's decent, you know, pretty nice. These outer wings, though, it's like, it reminds me of Trumpeter's big P-47 when you get to the gun bay doors, and the rivets are suddenly twice as deep, and it really shows up under paint. Could definitely be the case here as well. Anyway, that's the wings. Who cares about the plane, right? Let's get back to weapons. So here we've got even more weapons, various Russian missiles with their goofy bow tie fins. Whatever these things are. Again, I'm not a Russian... Oh, look, they're labeled. So this is an SPPU-22 and an OFAB 250. The R-73, I'm familiar with that sucker. Anyway, these are more weapons. There's tons of them. Pretty much as many as you could want. And last but not least, there is a whole second sprue of those. So Kitty Hawk is really not fucking around when it comes to weapons. There are a bunch of them in here. However, if you note, some of these, like the R-73 we've got here, nice and mostly one piece, but then you move over to these R-27s, and it's this weird, like, these are like this, but they've got this separate warhead and this one. So there's a bit of I would say assembly and cleanup that are going to be required with these, because they're halves and whatnot, that you probably won't find on, say, the missiles that come with the AMK and Great Wall Hobby kits, where they're doing the one-piece things nowadays. And, of course, the resin Edward missiles. Still, shut up, compressor. Still, I've got to commend them for the effort of putting all this together. Nice to see companies going increasingly the opposite way of Hasegawa, who doesn't give you jack within a box. Last but not least, decals, little photo etch sheet. If you look at the, hold on. Oh no, come here. So if you look at the seat belts on these, I'm not a fan of photo etch seat belts at all, but these actually have some relief and detail to them. Thank God. So anyway, little PE sheet. These things look like they're going to be a pain in the ass. Let's hope they're for something small. And then you've got the decals, so you've got markings for essentially Ukraine and Russia, and you've got the instrument panel, sidewalls, blah, blah, blah. So that is that. So after pawing through the kit sprues, what do I think? Well, I think first of all I need to bone up on my Soviet era air-to-ground and air-to-air ordnance, because I didn't know what the hell half those things were. Honestly, more like 85%. But lack of knowledge of Soviet weaponry aside, I would have to say, so far I'm guardedly optimistic on this kit. There's a lot to like in terms of detail. The cockpit really surprised me. Not only the move away from some of that god-awful PE cockpit shit they were doing years ago, but also the inclusion of things like separate side consoles that have nice, solid detail that, honestly, Tamiya could stand to take a look at. The detail on the rest of the aircraft looks pretty solid too, and the weaponry. The only dicey thing I think there is that detail on the swing wings does look a little bit heavy. We'll have to see though. Maybe later once this thing is built, I might throw some primer and some paint at it just to see what that ends up looking like. But that's for another time. Now, the thing that does worry me a little bit is the engineering. This thing is a tube with wings, just like pretty much every Soviet aircraft up until, I guess, the MiG-23. The MiG-15, MiG-17, MiG-19, Su-7, Su-9, they're all tubes with wings on them. You would think that's fairly easy to mold. Edward can do it. Trumpeter can do it. You take two halves, you stick them together, stick a shot cone in there, and you're done. For some reason, this thing has to be a 6-piece fuselage. And I don't really know why, because the detail here is nice, but they're not doing any like super fancy undercutting or anything like that would really necessitate this. And, this isn't just the typical thing like Italeri did with their F-104, where it's like, we're going to put a brake line in the tail because that's where they, took the tail off to work on the engine. Nobody ever builds them like that anyway, so I don't know why the hell they do that. But at least it makes sense, right? It's like, if you want to show it open up, here you go, we're going to cut it for you. To me, it does the same thing with the MiG-15, etc. So I would get that, but this whole like cutting it into thirds, I don't understand the rationale. And I also am honestly a bit worried that it's not, a lot worried that the fit's just not going to be there. There's also, this is a small thing, but I'm not a fan of typically the way that Kitty Hawk lays out their sprue gates, and there are a few places here where that's no exception. It's fine putting it on the back here. You're going to clean that up anyway, right? On the bottom, that's fine. I'm glad they managed to keep the gates off the top of the fuselage, but instead they put one right on the freaking nose, right on, the most delicate, thin piece of the entire thing that is going to need to be nice and smooth and round. And putting this there is just, it just seems unnecessary. I'm sure it's necessary to mold it, but it's like, come on guys, you could have stuck that somewhere else. Little quibble though. My biggest concern is, again, the engineering leading to dicey fit and a much more hassle-laden construction than is necessary. But anyway, with those fears laid out, and with the the kudos to them for getting some really solid detail out of this thing, let's start building it.